Welcome to Factoring with a Distributive Property, including variables. When you're done with this screencast, you should be able to factor using the distributive property. Prior to having success with this lesson, you should understand what the greatest common factor is, and you should also be comfortable with distributing with variables. The reason that we need this lesson is to be able to identify equivalent expressions. We'll also use this when it comes time to solving equations. So, taking a look at our first example, 18x minus 6y plus 30, our first job is to figure out what is the greatest common factor of 18, 6, and 30. So that greatest common factor is 6. If you need help finding that out, please notify your teacher as soon as possible. But we're going to move forward assuming that you already know how to get the greatest common factor. So what I'm going to do next is rewrite each of these terms so that I can clearly see that 6 is a factor. So in my head, I think, what do you multiply by 6 to turn it into 18x? Well, you multiply 6 by 3x to turn it into 18x. Then we bring down that operation of subtraction. Then I think about the next term. What do I multiply by 6 to turn it into 6y? And that would be y. So 6 times y equals 6y. Bring down the addition. What do you multiply by 6 to turn it into 30? That would be 5. So here I've just rewritten each of those terms so that I can see 6 as a factor. My next job is to completely factor by just writing that 6 down once. And then I'm going to open up parentheses and write out what's left over. That would be the 3x minus y plus 5. So I'm factoring out the 6, and then that leaves me in parentheses 3x minus y plus 5. And that's factoring. So really, if you think about what we've done is we've undone the distribution. If I were to take this problem as my start and work it out, I would distribute the 6 and get the term that we originally started with. But what I'm doing here is I'm undistributing the 6 and leaving it out. And undistribute is not a word, but factoring is. So factoring is what we do when we undistribute. Now, something to keep in mind is this step right here is an optional step. Eventually, you will be able to do this in your head. You'll be able to move from 18x minus 6y plus 30 straight to the 6 times 3x plus y plus 5. If you're there, that's great. You can skip that step. If you're not there yet, that's great. Just include this step until you become a little bit more comfortable. Okay, let's take a look at our next question. 5 plus 35x. Okay, so again, I'm trying to think of what is my greatest common factor of 5 and 35x, or just 35. So the greatest common factor of 5 and 35 is just 5. So my next step is to think, what number do I multiply by 5 to turn it into 5? That would be a 1. And then bring down that addition symbol. And then what number do you multiply by 5 to turn it to 35x? That would be 7x. So here I've clearly rewritten these terms so I can see a factor of 5. And then to finish up, I am going to factor out the 5, open parentheses, and then write down the 1 plus 7x. So that's what I've done. I've just factored out the 5, or I undistributed the 5. So don't forget that this middle step is optional. As time goes on, you're probably going to want to skip that step because your work will seem less cluttered, but if you still need that step, you're okay. So in this lesson, you have learned how to factor using the distributive property, and that is our screencast.